Hello and welcome to the Unnamed Automotive Podcast. My name is Sammy Hajjasad, and with me, as always, is my good friend and fellow automotive journalist, Benjamin Hunting. Say hi to the people, Ben.
Greetings, human listeners.
Greetings to everyone, but especially our guest today, Mr. Bradley Iger, another fantastic freelance automotive journalist and all-around awesome dude. Brad, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going okay over here. I'll say that it's going okay, but I think by the end of this episode, it'll be going very well.
Sammy almost melted this morning trying to plug in. Tell the story you told me about that dude who accosted you at the charging station.
Yeah, today we're dealing with a really big heat wave, a really significant heat wave. Ben, you did the numbers on.
It's like 115 Fahrenheit where Sammy is. I think 46 Celsius.
It is brutal, and I have to fast charge the car that I'm driving, and I was struggling. I was really struggling to make it work. I have like these NACS adapters. I have this CCS adapter. I don't know what I'm doing.
You had like six apps. You had your wallet out.
Yeah, it was not working. And finally, after like running in and out of the car like 3 or 4 times, moving to a different spot, all this kind of stuff, I finally get it working, and I'm like, all right, good. Now I can cool down in like the cafe or the store or whatever. And some guy just stops me. I'm telling you, I'm sweating through everything right now. And he's like, hey, I've never used one of these fast chargers. What is it like? How much does it cost? And so I tell him the rate. It's like 60 cents a kilowatt hour. And he's like, oh, like, how long will that take? How much is that going to cost? And I'm sitting there, I am sweating. I'm like, I cannot think right now.
But this guy's taking notes, right? Like he has a notebook out, and he has a painter's easel, and he's doing a portrait of you while you're doing this at the same time.
I could not imagine what was going on. I was sweating. It felt like I was being interrogated, like under a heat lamp, like I was being tortured. It was crazy.
It's like, funny thing is, if someone had asked me those questions, I would not know the answers because I don't know what it costs to charge at whatever plug I'm at. I'm just glad the plug is available. Like I don't.
That is what happened. Like I was thinking, I'm like, this guy really wants to talk to me about this car. I better like talk to him about it. So I pull up the phone. I'm looking at these numbers. I pull up the calculator app, and I'm usually so. Like, I'm really friendly at these interactions. I'm like, oh, I'm reviewing it for these people. We have the podcast. Come and check us out. Follow me on Instagram or whatever. But today I was so short with him. I'm like, it costs this much.
Today you only gave him the OnlyFans link, and
I showed him the QR code tattooed on my bicep, like
your bicep. When you flex, it goes to an even more risque site. It's a transformational QR code.
I appreciate you changing the intro. Usually, I get Ben to plug some of his recent publications, but we've preambled a little bit too long today, so I want to get right to it. Brad, I wanted you on today's episode because you drove the craziest looking thing I have seen in probably my entire career, and I could not believe it's real. I thought it was a render. I thought this is just like a video game thing. But can you please walk me through a car known as the Czinger 21?
Yeah, 21C, and the version I drove was the VMax.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at the difference one.
There's also a high downforce version. Like I was telling Ben before, the main difference is mainly the aero packages they put on it.
So it's 2 different ways to die on a racetrack.
Oh, come on.
You know how they say oversteer is one way of hitting the wall and understeer is the other way? I feel like VMax and max downforce are like the other 2 poles of that equation.
This car... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, I think that the way they kind of configured it is that they wanted one car that was going to, chase top speed records, and then another version of the car that was going to chase lap records. And that's where you get the high downforce one and the VMax one. There
are so many ways to try to describe this car to our listeners. It's a non-visual medium, but I'm basically I'm gonna give it a go. Imagine a open wheel race car with all of the open elements covered, like as closely as possible, and you've got what this car looks like. It looks like a Pagani in a different dimension, like a different history.
I think that the fact that it's center seating kind of defines the shape of the car, and I think that to me it reminds me a lot of like Le Mans prototypes, kind of in that way, because it's that center seating. but dialed down a little bit more, especially with the VMax not having the crazy wing and all that, and the canards and all that stuff. I mean, you're sort of focusing just on the shape of it, which is like really curvy, obviously. And I think that with the high down or with the VMax car, they want it to be as slippery as possible, so it does have that really sort of alien wind tunnel sort of shape to it. Everything is a scoop or a duct or some kind,
Yeah. So it's funny that you mentioned scoops and ducts. Like from certain angles, it looks like there's almost a wicker-like surface for a lot of the fairings on the vehicle, like to allow air to pass through in areas where you wouldn't normally see that on a car.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, like I was telling you guys before, like I feel like a lot of this car is less about like long-term sort of everyday road use, and more specifically, this is a car that you can drive on the street, but really like is designed to live on tracks, either high-speed tracks or road courses. Like I feel like there's very much this is more of a technical showcase than sort of a long-term sort of product rollout, where this would be something that they're going to build on over a long-term period and make it into some kind of Grand Tourer or something like that. I think that they will do this to sort of really bring some attention to the company, and then probably if it gets enough attention, move into something that will be higher volume. That's a little more conventional.
There's a couple of things about the car's looks that bring to mind early 90s prototype supercars, back when aero wasn't the only thing that was a consideration. And I think that part of that is the single seating, the single row seating that you mentioned. I'm thinking about, remember that Yamaha prototype that was out there? That was also a single row dual seat vehicle. It really has that kind of cool proportion where, like, instead of having enormous door sills, like you still kind of have that, but the body of the car itself is like visually narrowed in a way that you don't see on a lot of supercars today.
Yeah, I mean, this car does have gigantic door sills, though. I mean, when I went to get into it, they were like, hold on, stop. We have to show you how you get into the car.
Are there places you're not allowed to step and whatnot?
I mean, I think they just wanted me to get like an interpretation of the sequence that was as graceful as possible. And there's really no truly graceful way to do it. But you basically have to sit on the sill with your feet outside of the car and like tuck everything in and spin around on your butt and then drop into the car.
Nice.
I love it.
Spin and drop.
Yeah.
I love that. It's like, that's such a sequence. Like, I appreciate that.
And then to get out, you have to turn the car upside down and shake it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody, over the age of 40 is going to do this gracefully. It's just, an inevitability just because of how weird it is and how, like I said, purpose built the car is. And because, so the part of the reason that there's such a huge, sort of, gap you have to clear in order to get into the car is because the batteries of the car are in those side sills. So it makes them even a little bit bigger. They're really small, like batteries. Like I think it's like the total is like maybe 6 kilowatts, something like that. It's just essentially to just power the front motors. There's no all electric driving range.
Okay.
But they're in there, I think, because they figured that was the best place to protect them. But the problem is that it just, it makes that area really wide, in addition to the fact that you don't have seats, coming out to the sides of the car.
Right.
Now, before we get to that powertrain, the drivetrain aspect, I want to just focusing a bit more on the looks. You've showed us some pictures, again, not a visual medium. You showed us some pictures of the assembly of this vehicle, and there's a really cool aspect of it in that the front and rear subframes that aren't attached to the carbon fiber tub, which is where the passenger and the backbone of the vehicle is located, they're 3D printed. And so, like, I'm looking at them, and it's like I'm looking at props from like Alien 3,
right?
Where they're like have this kind of organic, creature-made, sort of homespun, find it in nature look, at almost like bones. It looks like the vehicle has an actual skeleton, and there's not the same type of like linear curves and sharp edges that you see on something that's like extruded or something that's been machine made.
Yeah, I mean, when I wrote up this story for Hemmings, I mentioned that the end product of their software iterations on these looks like something that H.R. Geiger would have come up with for a car,
totally.
And I mean, people have done 3D printing before, in the automotive realm, but this is, first off, I think that the fact that they're doing this for metal parts is kind of unusual. And I also, because it's so, backing up just slightly. So Czinger is owned by this larger company that's, the same people of this larger company called Divergent Technologies, which essentially is mainly focused on 3D printing and like software development for that. And I was telling Ben earlier, they work with automotive clients, like McLaren and Bugatti and folks like that who need, maybe like an upright for a wing or something like that, something that's going to be low volume for like, some hypercar they're going to build. But they also do stuff for the Department of Defense and for aerospace and stuff like that. So I think with this car, what they did is they essentially said, okay, how can we make this as light as possible within the packaging constraints that we want to do? And so they, took this software that they have, that Divergent has, and they said, okay, we're going to plug this information into it for, the subframes and for the control arms and every other piece, like pretty much anything that attaches to that carbon fiber monocoque. They said like, okay, this is the, strength, targets we want to meet. This is the packaging constraints it's going to have. And then said, told the software to start iterating different versions of what that control arm or, subframe, section would look like. And eventually gets to a point where it is so refined that if you remove or add a gram of material to it, it is worse off. It is either unnecessary weight or it compromises the strength.
Pure optimization. That's crazy.
Yeah, when I read about that kind of was what really got me interested in this car, because it's ridiculous to say this, but we have a lot of 1,000, 1,200 horsepower cars now. GM makes one.
Yeah.
And they've been around for a few years. And at this point, it's like, I don't need to drive every single one of those to know what it's like to drive a 1,000 horsepower car. Mm-hmm. What I'm really more interested in is just like technical innovation that can make cars better in general. And while this is like, these are low production cars and a lot of the assembly is done by hand at the end of it, this kind of stuff seems like something that could truly be applicable to production cars, like on a larger scale, 10 or 15 years from now.
I think you're touching on something that's really important that we've maybe talked a bit about in the past on the podcast, but the idea these days, you're talking about how there's so many of these 1,000 horsepower cars. You're right. And it's increasingly difficult to differentiate between them in terms of, you're saying the driving experiences are not all that different. The appearances are also not all that different because so much is driven by aero these days.
Yeah.
And it's really created a genericized silhouette and profile that is the optimal way for cutting through the air for X engine position on a platform. But then you talk about Czinger coming out with this idea of like, well, our car looks a bit different, but what's really different about it is we have a zero tolerance assembly process,
right,
which is something that I don't think any other automaker has even attempted, or at least if they are, they haven't talked about it. Like
you mean slates absolutely nothing in the car is not purely optimized?
It's optimized for stain resistance, I guess. But I've been to the Koenigsegg factory, and it was like going into like a custom garage where there were rooms where there was just carbon fiber lying around on tables and on the floor, and like parts were here and there, and it really had a homespun feel. Mm-hmm. And like what you're describing, Brad, is not at all that vibe. It really seems as though this car has been optimized within an inch of its life, but like not for cynical reasons, like you sometimes see, we want production efficiencies, we want to cut costs as much as possible. Here it's like, well, this is the most finely balanced component we could possibly come up with.
Yeah, they're leveraging innovative technology to make these cars, and that's kind of what really caught my attention. Is that like the other thing is just as these cars get more and more powerful, they just keep getting heavier and heavier. Mm-hmm.
Especially with batteries involved.
Yeah. And so this car is probably bigger than a C8 Corvette. And, a ZR1X is, I think, like 4,300 pounds. This thing's 3,600 pounds.
Wow.
And so, and it makes the same power, and it has a similar layout. And they got there. I mean, obviously, part of that is like reduced sound deadening and stuff like that. But I mean, you're talking 700 or 800 pounds of weight that is a big difference, especially when you get to this kind of level.
Yeah. And the ability to just go full on carbon fiber really helps too.
Right.
You have that ability, the ability to do it in a smaller batch is a huge advantage for a company like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I just, like I said, I think that the 3D printing element of it is really what kind of caught my attention, just because, that and the other thing that's, I think, really interesting about this car is that they looked around for a V8 to use and they couldn't find one that would fit within the packaging constraints of this tandem seating layout. And so they just built their own. They just created their own 2.8 liter twin turbo V8.
That is super unusual. I mean,
it's so weird. And I mean, it's awesome. I mean, it makes 750 horsepower on its own.
Yeah, for people who are listening who are maybe not familiar with generally how supercars get their drivetrains, even a company like Koenigsegg started out working from, I believe it was Audi V8s. I don't quote me exactly on that, but they were taking production V8s and using them as a template for their early cars before they ever even decided to build anything on their own. And we've seen no end of bespoke supercars that come out with like LS power or AMG power, particularly that turbo 4-liter V8 that's out there and everything now. Like drivetrain development seems to be limited to hybrid systems and software attached to an existing off-the-shelf power plant that's then finagled and messed around with. It's for a company to turn their back on that. And I can't impress enough how difficult it is to develop your own 10,000 RPM V8.
Yeah.
It's not something that is casually done, and it's not something that a company does for the first time typically.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's wild. And I think this one's actually 11 grand, which is, I mean, it sounds like a super bike when you start winding it out. I mean, the Temerario is pretty similar in the tone, but because this has, another 1,000 or 1,500 RPM, it's just that much crazier. And also there's, like I said, there's very little sound deadening in this car. So like you really feel like you are strapped to an engine, that revs to 11,000 RPM.
What does it feel like in the back seat?
I mean, tight. You are straddling the seat in front of you, and you can't really see much because the seat is directly in front of you.
That's how I prefer to travel. It's like the Spirit Airlines of supercars.
I mean, you could certainly do it even at 6'3". I fit back there. It's just you are ensconced in the car at that point. Like you're not really going anywhere. And I mean that's kind of true of the front seat too. It feels people have compared it to a fighter jet, and I think that's pretty accurate because you have this sort of dome that's wrapped around you and the doors are on either side of your elbows. So like you are very much in the car,
So with those giant sills, what's visibility like because you're right in the center of the car?
I mean, it's fine. I think that where it gets a little bit tricky is that when you're driving on the road, and this is, again, another thing that kind of, indicates that this car is really more designed to live on the track than it is on the road. Since you're in the center of the car, you inevitably end up hugging the center line of the lane. Like you want to lean it to the left because you're no longer on the left side of the car. You're in the middle side of the car, but your brain is thinking about it like you're in a left-hand drive car.
Wow.
And I mean, the other thing is that just the fenders come up so high, and you have these really beefy A-pillars. I mean, the visibility outside is great aside from those things, but those things definitely sort of affect what you can see and what you can't see. You're certainly not looking down on the road. You're as low as possible. So those things are, I wouldn't say problematic, but they're definitely things you notice more on the road than I think you would on a racetrack.
Yeah. And you mentioned so it's a hybrid, but you mentioned no EV mode and that the electric motors are solely for the front wheels. Is that right?
Yeah, well, there's one that's connected to the between the gearbox and the engine.
Okay.
But that's not. It's essentially like a starter generator and kind of adds a little bit of power to that end of it. Whereas the front wheels are sheerly powered by the motors that are up there.
And are they always powered, or only under certain circumstances?
I believe that they're always powered. It's got, I think, like 4 different drive modes. There's like a street, sport, track, and track plus. And then track plus, they were like, you can't use this on the street because it drops the car by 30 millimeters, which is really, really, I mean, I wouldn't want to because it's so low at that point. Like anything that you would, even a bump in the road would cause the front splitter to bounce off of the pavement.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're really like it's. I'm looking at the picture I took here when I had it drop down like that, and I mean, the front, splitters maybe 2 or 3 inches off of the road at that
Yeah,
point.
I can think of like some racetracks where I wouldn't be comfortable driving
Right.
with that. And that
Totally.
road. Yeah. And what's it like to drive? Like, how insane is it? You mentioned, I mean, 1,200 horsepower cars have a similar experience. What is setting this apart driving experience wise specifically? Like aside from the feel of being in the center of the car?
I think that, with something like this where, you have a hybrid system always running, it's not maybe as harsh and sort of jumpy as you would expect it to be, because you have the hybrid system filling in the gaps during the shifts and things like that. It's got a single clutch transmission like an Aventador, so you would think that like it's going to be terrible.
Yeah.
But because you have the hybrid system filling in the torque gaps, you don't really notice those shifts as much in terms of like there's being this sudden drop in power delivery. But what you do get from that is those super gnarly, full throttle upshifts that you get from a single clutch, where it feels like you're being kicked by a mule every time you shift it, which is kind of I mean, I like that stuff. I mean, it's not it's probably not the most efficient way for that transmission to work.
No, but it reminds you that you're driving something.
I mean, it adds to the drama, and I mean, I love that. That's what I loved about the Aventador. I mean, that gearbox was terrible on the road, but on the racetrack, you felt like you were doing something.
But yeah, continue more. Tell me more. Like, so it's got this gearbox, this bizarre gearbox. But they've kind of like, it kind of works for the design of it. But what about like, does that handling, does that like hugging the road kind of aerodynamics play into how you drive it every day?
I mean,
would drive it every day? I
don't think you can really touch anywhere near this car's dynamic limits on the road, really anywhere. So like, even with the VMax, I doubt that you're really touching any speeds where like the aero would matter, aside from the fact that it's not generating lift.
Yeah.
But I mean, those things aside, like it's pretty easy to drive. It's not huge, so you can kind of place it where you want to, and it's 3,600 pounds, so it's not super heavy. It stops really well. It's on great tires. So, and I mean, the power is there. And I mean, even if it had tons of lag, turbo lag, you wouldn't notice it because the hybrid system's filling those gaps in. So it feels pretty linear.
I want to point out that this car's front brakes are larger than the wheels on my Pathfinder.
Yeah, they're insane. Those like brake discs are just gigantic. And like I was, asking them about them because they look so weird. Like they're not a two-piece in the conventional sense. And so like, I'm looking at them and I'm like, are these weird? And is there something unusual about these brakes? And like, no, these are pretty standard carbon ceramics. They're just AP Racing carbon ceramics that you would never see on normal road cars, because they're probably $1 bazillion.
Yeah.
I mean, you're working with an entirely different, set of tools when you're at this, price range than you would with like conventional supercars.
Where would you put this in the pantheon of the ones that you've driven and the ones that maybe are at this vehicle's level?
I mean, it just depends on what you care about. I mean, this car has set like more than a dozen lap records across the U.S. And so as far as, I might be confused on that. I know that it's set at least 5 or 6 in California alone. So, I mean, clearly it's extremely capable. I think that certainly would take a few days of tracking it in order to like get to a point where you're comfortable, like truly exploiting what this car is capable of, just because it is so fast. It has so much grip. And I'm sure with the downforce car, you have, it's about trusting the aero at a certain point. If you can go into, turn 7 at Big Willow at 170 miles an hour, you're probably not going to want to do that the first time around.
Yeah. We've all been. I've mentioned in the past, driving an aero car is the biggest leap of faith that you can take if you grew up driving grip cars, because it's the exact opposite of everything you've been taught in terms of cornering, where you actually have to go faster to stick through the corner.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it messes with you so much.
It's terrifying the first few times. You're like, I guess we're doing this.
Yeah. And you have to come up with almost a whole new understanding of where the limits of a car are, because when you're driving a non-aero car, aka 90% of the cars most of us will ever drive, you have a certain number of cues from how the vehicle is acting that tell you how much grip you have, whether it's the sound of the tires or the feel of the gradual breaking loose of the rear end of the car or the front end pushing or whatever it is. There's friction is making itself known while you're driving. But an aero car has none of that. Like if you're feeling that
communication all the time. Yeah,
well, it has communication, but like if you're feeling that in an aero car, you're going too slow,
right?
Right? Like by the time you get to the point where the aero is effective, you won't have any of that friction communication anymore. You lose all of the sensory input that you're so used to in terms of determining where the line is. And for me, in my case, I've had some incidents where I was too close to the line and I didn't know, and I dropped speed and it had terrible consequences, like, cause I'm not used to it.
Anything else you want to add about the Czinger, Brad?
I mean, no, I think that, yes.
How much are these things going to cost? How much are they going to cost again?
I mean, they're building them now. I think that they start at like 2.3 million, maybe 2.4.
Ooh, just out of my
right?
budget.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that this company is planning to do things that are going to be, higher volume going down the road. And I think that, there's been hints that they're going to do one with a more conventional layout. And, they'll still, from what, they've told me specifically, they want to build more cars that are going to be high performance vehicles, high performance focused. But I think it's going to be at a more accessible price point and with a more conventional layout. I mean, I think that this is more than anything a technical showcase and something that will grab attention because it will set those records, and that's really how you get press,
Right, Sammy, didn't you say you had to choose between having a second child or buying a Czinger 21C?
Yeah, that was pretty much
that was a tough choice.
Pros and cons. It was very difficult to convince my partner about the benefits to this car in her life, but I don't think the kid has many benefits now that I think about it. But...
Wow.
That takes a while.
First.
Yeah, we're gonna save this episode for when they're, I guess, 18 and anyways, Ben, I think we should transition to another car that we've been testing out lately, and that's your Ram that you've been driving, right?
Yeah, totally the opposite end of the spectrum in all ways but one, because this Ram has 1,075 pound-feet of torque. So it's right up there with the Czinger. It's delivered a little bit differently, and the packaging is conservatively 3 times as heavy. I don't think they 3D printed anything except maybe the cup holders, and they didn't use any carbon fiber, but they used all the steel in America when putting this thing together. I drove a 2026 Ram 2500, and it had the 6.7 liter Cummins i6 that has 430 horsepower and the previously mentioned insane amount of torque. Why am I driving this truck, you're asking yourself? Because in a time when gas prices are absolutely insane and diesel prices are even higher, well, I was going to Mosport, as is my custom, to do a track day. And since my Z is still in pieces and being rewired, although I believe it was fired up yesterday afternoon for the first time, so that's good to know. We took my dad's Mustang and we put it on his trailer, which is like a big, hefty steel trailer with a wood floor and like a very high tongue weight because of how the Mustang has to be parked to get the doors open. It's not an easy trailer to tow. So using an HD pickup with it solves a lot of problems. And I hadn't driven this generation of HD. Listeners will probably remember 2 years ago when I drove the 1500 when it was redesigned, and I towed with that. I towed exactly the same package, and I had the air suspension fail on the truck, which is not great.
No.
Yeah, that was a bit disappointing. So I figured, well, what could go wrong this time? 2500, it's probably not going to fail. And for the most part, the truck was pretty good.
For the most part, it did not fail.
So there's a couple things I really liked about the truck. The first is it has air suspension for the rear, but it's specifically to lower the bed. There's a button on the console where you push it and it drops the bed a considerable amount, and you can actually load stuff into it. This is like one of my biggest complaints about modern pickups, that they're so tall that you can't lift anything over the side anymore. And even with the tailgate down, they're a hassle. But I picked up a couple of 5-foot planters for vegetables and whatnot, the cedar planters in this thing, managed to get them in without any problems. And then when we were loading the truck for the track, we bring a bunch of cinder blocks to like weigh down the tarps and stuff that we use to keep the sun off. And we have, tables and chairs and stuff. I believe the truck has like a 2,000 pound tongue weight capability, so it doesn't really affect the towing, fortunately.
Okay.
But with the suspension low, you can do that no problem. And you can also lower it to hitch up your trailer, which is really convenient given how tall HD trucks are. I don't have to crank the trailer jack, and I don't have to put like 6 blocks of wood under the trailer jack to get it to where the hitch is. That's been a problem for me on the past with like the AT4X version of the GMC 2500,
Right.
the Sierra. That thing, I had to let 6 pounds of air out of the rear tires just to get my 2-inch drop hitch to meet where the trailer tongue was. It's crazy. The other aspect of this like axle thing is it has a thing called alt trailer height, and that doesn't put mascara on your trailer. It doesn't give you like a cool studded wristband, but what it does do is let you maintain the lower rear ride angle if your trailer is too small. Like for most people who are using an HD truck, you're probably already towing something that's fairly tall, like a large trailer. But if you have a fifth wheel where the hitch is in the trailer bed, this is something that you might want to look into, because you don't necessarily want to have a lot of angle between the fifth wheel hitch and the trailer if the truck is too tall. And you can level out your hitch on the fifth wheel with this system very effectively. And that's a cool feature that I don't think any other truck has on the market right now.
I love that. I think that's a great asset for this vehicle. What was the drive like, and how did it drive with the extra weight of the truck and of the trailer in the car?
Okay, so before I get to that, there's a couple other towing specific things I want to talk about. But do you want to talk about that first?
No. If you've got a process you want to get through before we get,
I always have a process,
and I always mess it up.
This is really a process-driven podcast.
Yeah,
people are
clearly
probably not aware of that. But we have like extensive software preparation that blocks out like 200 to 300 episodes in advance. So it's a long arc that bends towards justice. This truck has a bunch of other towing related stuff. And when I say a bunch, I mean not as much as some other trucks. Like there's a system where you can program in different trailer profiles, which is cool because you can set up your brakes. You can set up how long the trailer is. You can set up whether you have like, tire pressure monitoring for your trailer, all that stuff. You can put cameras on the trailer. I don't know if I mentioned that, and feed it into the system that the Ram has. Then you can see the angle on the infotainment, but it's very basic. Like that's all you have compared to like a GM or a Chevrolet or a GMC. There's a lot more elaborate stuff you can put into the profiles. The cool thing about the Ram though, is it uses its rear facing cameras to automatically recognize your trailer and load and see if it matches a profile it already has. So then it will choose the trailer profile for you instead of like you having to scroll through and do it yourself, which is kind of cool. But it has another feature called trailer. Let me get the exact name for it here because it doesn't work properly. Trailer steering. It's a little knob on the bottom of the console. You push a button and you're supposed to be able to steer with the knob left and right, and that will turn the trailer left and right instead of having to reverse steer with the steering wheel. You just use the gas and the brake. This system does not work. I've had it in a Ram 1500 where it would work one day and then not work the next. In this truck, it kept asking me to calibrate it. And at one point I was driving in a circle in the parking lot at the racetrack while it kept saying, turn left, turn left, turn left. And like literally for 90 seconds, maybe even 2 minutes, and nothing is happening. It would never work for me. So 2 years apart, two different problems, similar results. I'd have to say this is a feature that is, I mean, you can't count on this thing, man. It's just
That's brutal.
Not going to work. But on the plus side, it has an exhaust brake that works fine. It's overkill for a 6,000 pound load like what I had. This is like a truck with a 20,000 pound towing limit. So, we're really below that. It has tow haul for the transmission. I didn't really need it. It was useful. It would kick down on hills a little bit easier when I was like on gradual hills, like longer hills. But in general, with 6,000 pounds and 1,000 pound-feet of torque, you don't really need tow haul in the transmission. In terms of how it felt while driving, this truck is definitely not as quick as the GMC diesel V8.
Okay.
When I was towing the exact same load with a Silverado HD, this thing, the Silverado had explosive acceleration. Like I could merge like there was no trailer. It really felt like I wasn't towing at all. It was startling. Like the passing power was crazy. I was a little bit intoxicated by it. And it's like dangerous because you can forget that you're towing 6,000 pounds.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a car bouncing around behind you.
Exactly. The Cummins does not have that. It's perfectly fine. You're not going to have any issues, but it takes a little longer to get where you're going. And I was surprised by that.
Okay.
The other thing that surprised me, though, in a positive way, the fuel mileage was excellent. I got 18 miles per gallon at 65 miles an hour.
Wow.
In the Silverado, I got 14 or 13 and a half. And even when I punched up I did half the trip, 400 miles at 65 because gas is expensive. 18 miles per gallon. That's 13 liters per 100 kilometers. That's better than my dad's truck. He tows this load with a Ford F-150 with the 5 liter, and he's doing like 15, 16 liters per 100 kilometers. So it's way more efficient than a light duty pickup. Then I bumped it up to 75 miles per hour. And I got 14 and a half liters per 100 kilometers, still beating a light duty truck. And that translates into about 14 miles per gallon. Both of those numbers, much better than the Silverado. So that's the trade-off. Yeah. That's like, do you want to have explosive V8 power, or do you want to like not use $1 billion in fuel getting where you're going?
Exactly. I think that's a really good, I mean, diesels are they usually have that benefit of having a ton of torque with them, the turbo diesels. But in the recent history, they've tried to emphasize like there's a bit of fuel savings there too. And I'm glad to see that there is some. What's the transmission like on this thing? Does it have 1 billion gears to make
it's an 8-speed torque flight. I don't know if that's an in-house development for Ram, if that's something they borrowed from Cummins, or if it's a ZF unit. Like, I don't know the details behind that transmission. It is a different transmission than the 8-speed you would get with the standard gas engine in this vehicle, which is the 6.4. I'm assuming it has a lot more logic built into it specifically for towing, and probably a lot of software that makes it so you're not putting 1,000 pound-feet down at 0 RPM. You know, like so you don't blow things up when you're trying to tow your giant load. The truck towed fine, except I had a vibration that would come and go at 65 to 70 miles an hour. It would come through the floor and sometimes through the accelerator. I don't know if that's because the roads are very rough coming from Ontario to Quebec, which they are. And that the fact that I had this trailer was extending the wheelbase and creating like a vibrational frequency that was occasionally just amplifying that into the cab, or if it was a transmission issue.
Okay.
I can't tell.
No clear, but it was frustrating.
It's frustrating, especially for a truck that retails at like 115 grand Canadian or 93 US with the options that I had. It starts at 65 US, which is not that bad, but that's like your base engine with the V8. The turbo diesel option's like 9 grand, which is a lot. And I think if you're serious about towing, you're probably going to go for that. So this is a $75,000 truck.
Holy
minimum.
Cow. Okay. At minimum. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about these Rams is I always found them to be really attractive looking on the outside. Interior can sometimes carry that same impression. What is the situation you had going on? What was the trim level again? And
it was a Laramie. It was fine. Nothing really special about it. Nothing really off-putting. It doesn't feel super plasticky. One thing that did catch me off guard was it's a crew cab, not a mega cab, and the rear seat was not very big.
Interesting.
I was carrying a lot of gear with me, and because I didn't have a tonneau cover, I had to put all the stuff I didn't want stolen inside the truck, and it very quickly filled up.
Yeah. So there's no like lift up. Like
there is, and they make it worse. So like, you lift the bottom of the seat, and then there's like, you can put something down where the seat was, but you've lost like 5 inches of back room now because the seat is folded up against the bulkhead. And then there's like a flip out, super flimsy plastic tray that you can put stuff on if you want to, that like is supposed to fold out from where the seat was. And I didn't even risk that because it looked like it would snap in half. So that was like that on both sides. It's like a 60-40 split. So not great.
Of uselessness, basically.
Yeah, pretty useless. Yeah.
Yeesh. Okay, tell me more. What else?
That's pretty much all I have to say. I mean, the truck did what it was supposed to. I didn't have any failures or weirdness or anything other than the electronic features I mentioned that didn't work. If you're looking for an HD truck, probably drive this, see what you think. The fuel mileage alone is, I mean, if you're driving all day, 2 or 3 or 4 miles per gallon makes a big difference.
Huge difference.
That's like a 25% difference over the Silverado. I think I also liked that this, unlike the Silverado, which was a trail boss and had like knobby tires and like a tall ride height and no side steps, this had like folding side steps and was easier to get into. And that's going to matter too. If you're primarily towing, don't like cosplay in an off-road truck. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. It really impacts the overall capability of it and like confidence really when you're towing something.
Brad, if you had to pick 1,000 pound-feet of torque vehicle between the Czinger and the Ram, what's your choice and why?
I mean, I could just take the Czinger and then sell it and buy a dozen, Rams if I wanted to.
I like that. That's where your thought process led you to Ram maxing. Like that's the.
I mean, I just think that, like I said, that car is so purpose built for lap records that like the Ram is probably a more pleasant experience on a day-to-day basis. It's just going to be easier to live with. I mean, we all know that supercars are typically kind of a pain in the ass to live with because they're so low to the ground. The visibility is not great. You just have to worry about things that you don't really have to worry about with, normal cars. Like, if there's a big pothole, you could probably take that in a Ram without really worrying about it. Whereas that would be an absolute crisis in the 21C.
It's funny because like the Ram, the HD trucks all their hassles exist at the other end of the spectrum. Like it's too tall and too big and like you can't park it and you can't see the child that's standing in front of you. Like all this stuff that like is the exact opposite of the supercar experience.
I mean, I think that's why these compact pickups like the Maverick are doing well, is because people want to do truck stuff without having to, buy something that's gigantic and totally a pain in the ass to live with, like, in an urban area of any kind.
Completely. So I live in the middle of nowhere. And this truck is a hassle. Even getting it in my own driveway, like I'm hitting branches and stuff, and like the parking sensors are going crazy because there's like a bush nearby, and like the truck is as wide as my driveway, and the mirrors are wider than my driveway. It's ridiculous.
Brutal. Yeah.
No, you were going to say something, and I want to hear it.
I was going to ask you if you have anything else you want to give this final say on the Ram 2500.
Not about the Ram. But I want to talk a bit about my track experience.
Yeah, let's hear all about this track experience.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, my Z is not running right now because the wiring harness is kaput, and we're putting in a universal harness that will hopefully solve all of my problems and kumbaya my car back into operation. But we decided, I hadn't been on the track in 2 years actually. Last year I didn't do any track driving because like mentally I wasn't there. Didn't trust myself to be able to focus enough last summer. So I took the summer off and I just went with my dad to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park and watched him drive around and, was basically pit crew for him. Mm-hmm. This year we went to the same track and I decided to drive, and I was driving his car, which I've done many times. It's a 2005 Mustang GT, has a bit of suspension work and some gearing, but it's very stock. Normally it's super reliable and a good time, and it's fun to drive. I mean, the S197 is a good platform. It's basic and fun. And I was sad because this event was set up to have like a couple morning sessions and then 3 hours of open track time in the afternoon, which is really wild at a track like this. I was sad that I didn't have my car because that would have been amazing. But I'm like, you know what? We're going to make the most of the Mustang. It generally does well with dual driving. We don't have any problems. Except after 2 sessions each in the morning, I went to take 4 or 5 pounds of air out of the tires because they had been a bit overinflated and we're trying out some stuff. And I'm at the rear of the car and I look and there's an enormous crack in the rear brake rotor. Oh. And then I keep looking and there's 3 more. And then I go to the other side of the car and there's at least 6 on the left side of the car.
Oh my God, Ben.
And we had just been out for like 2 hours in the car at 200 kilometers an hour is the top speed on that track in a Mustang. And like, it was legitimately a very scary moment. The worst part was my father had gone to a shop that he frequents and had the car inspected prior to the event. And these
Okay.
cracks were not seen. And when I say cracks, I mean inch long cracks. And Dad has cross drilled brakes in the back, which I'm not a fan of for exactly this reason. I
Right.
know Brad knows what I'm talking about.
Yes.
You remove material from a brake rotor and you are going to create weakness. There's no way around it. And I don't believe the advantages for gas outgassing and gas escaping under braking are worth that exchange.
No,
So-
and I mean, slotting will do the same thing. And I bet
Exactly.
you every one of those cracks meets up with one of those holes that are drilled into it.
Exactly, and that's the case here. All the cracks were at the cross drilled components. My dad has slotted brakes at the front of the car, no problems. I came in, and I'm thinking, did I do this? Like, were we abusing the car today? But the thing is, Mosport is a track that is very fast and very fluid. There is nowhere where you're going from 200 to 0.
Right.
You know, like at the end of the highest braking zone, you're probably going to go from 200 to 150. Like that is a very reasonable deceleration at a racetrack. And the only place where you do slow down to about, let's say, 50 miles an hour, there's a I guess you could call it like a bottleneck corkscrew. When you brake for that, you're probably coming from like 100 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour to 50. It's not a big deal.
Right.
So I'm on the phone with my mechanic, and I called him because he has crewed at Mosport many times for various teams. And he's like, there's no way that these cracks, I sent him pictures. He's like, there's no way these cracks are from today. I came into the pit.
Man.
I missed a checkered flag, and I came in with like no cool down and the front brakes were smoking, but like, that's not the same thing. These are like stress cracks. And so we didn't drive in the afternoon. Getting replacement brakes on the car would have been a process that would have required 75% of the afternoon. And then maybe we would have gotten an hour of track time if it hadn't been black flagged or something bad had happened. You know, like you're rolling the dice. My dad didn't want to do it. He was done. I was very disappointed because I had been excited about the day, but more to the point, I was really terrified about what could have happened out there. Like if those rotors had cracked, it's a catastrophic event.
It's huge. There's like, that's a lot of pressure just going kaput, right?
It's a piece of metal traveling at a very high rate of speed into the cabin, through the tire. You don't know where it's going to go. You don't know what lines it's going to cut. You don't know how it's going to destabilize the car when that happens, because you don't know when it's going to happen.
And on a high-speed track like this, you definitely don't want that kind of event happening.
Yeah. So we were really lucky. Like, we were fortunate to come away uninjured, but it really had me thinking a lot about how I've approached the track. I haven't had a successful track day in 3 years.
Yeah.
Where I haven't had something break, where I haven't had the car be unable to complete the track day, where I haven't required some kind of major repairs at the end, or like cut a session halfway off because of that. And I think that because it had been 2 years since I'd driven on the track, and because this wasn't my car, I got too casual about how I approached this day. And I assumed that my dad would take care of everything and that the vehicle would be as reliable, his Mustang, as it had always been. When the reality is, my dad also had only gone on one track day in the last 2 years.
Okay.
The car sits most of the time, and he is getting older, and I can't just expect him to pick up all the slack. And so I feel responsible for what happened on Monday. And I feel like I need to change my mentality about how I approach something that there's this thing that happens when you do something that's dangerous that you no longer feel is dangerous because you haven't personally been affected by that danger.
Yeah.
You get real casual about your safety, whether it's whether you're surfing, whether you're on a racetrack, whether you're climbing a rock wall, or whether even you're going camping, or you're hiking. And you know that at the back of your mind, you know what you should do to be safe, but because it's never bit you, you don't necessarily have the immediacy of the safety preparations you should be making, and things can start to slack off. And I think that's what's happened to me with racing. And part of that mentality, fighting that mentality, was me. And I've talked about this a lot with Brad, actually installing a roll bar in my car this year, and like realizing that bad things can happen in my death trap tin can 70s track car, and acknowledging that. But I didn't shift that mentality to my dad's modern car. I was just like, oh, this is a modern car, therefore it's reliable,
Right,
and I don't have to think about it. So I think it's on me, and it's something that I'm going to have to deal with as I get back into going to the track with my own car. I've decided I'm going to try. And again, Brad and I were talking about, hitting up autocross and smaller events as a way to like ease back into things, as a way to get the bugs out of the car and just, I guess, lower the stakes for getting back into motorsports.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, that's one of the great things about autocross is that, the worst thing that happens is you hit a cone, and I mean, and it allows you to sort of reach those dynamic limits of the car at low speeds where, you can fix problems when they happen. Whereas if you, start to lose the car at 120 miles an hour, it's a big problem. But if that happens at 70 or 60, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, in a big open parking lot, there are far more exit options,
Right. And I mean, the other thing is just with anything like this, any endeavor that has an element of danger to it, the more often you do it, statistically, you are just more likely to have an incident. It's just, and I mean, I've kind of had that realization with, heading up to Angeles Forest with press cars and my own cars. The more often I do that, the more likely I am to have some kind of problem, get a flat, have mechanical failure, have some, run over a rock, around a blind corner, or have a deer jump into the road. And so at this, it's something you don't really consider when you're younger because you've never actually experienced those things yet. It seems like something that happens to everybody else. And, it's just, as time goes on, you're sort of increasing the probability that those things will happen just by virtue of doing them more and more often. So I think at a certain point you have to assume that these things are either going to happen to you and you have no control over it, or you just are more selective about what you do. Yeah. Because that way that's generally just the way you can avoid it. You can do all kinds of, great preparation and think someone can still smack the side of the door of the Mustang while you're out there on the track day.
Yeah.
Yep. Someone could lose a wheel and it flies across it right in front of you. And you have I think preparation is really the only tool you have against that, preparation and mindset. And for me in this instance, I think it looks like playing a more active role in the maintenance of my dad's car if he decides to keep going to the track. Because like I said, he is getting older and he talks about not doing it as much as he used to. But also carrying spares is something that I don't do. I don't have nearly as many spare parts as I should.
Especially if you're going to be that far out from where you live. You got to have, you got to have some spares, at least things that potentially fail often.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think more than anything else, checking the tires and the brakes, those are the things that no matter what else happens, if those go bad while you're there, you're dead in the water. There's nothing.
Yeah. And it's true. And normally we torque the vehicle's wheels before we go out. I had actually done some air adjustments on the car in the morning, but I didn't look at the brakes. Why didn't I? I had the opportunity to do it then. And then maybe I have the morning to fix the car, and then we have the full afternoon of track time, plus the advantage of none of us going out on dangerous brakes. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of would have, could have, should have going on here. But, an 8-hour drive home give you a lot of time to think about it. So, but I'm just getting frustrated with going very long distances and having my car break and not being able to do anything. It's not, it makes me feel stupid. It makes me feel stupid for not preparing and for making bad choices. And I don't like feeling stupid when I could have prepared better. So that's on me. Anyway, I guess I'm kind of it's like a philosophical share. I'm not sure what to do with this information.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that the takeaway here is something you've already sort of, identified, which is that you just have to be prepared, especially if you're going to be doing track days far away from home, far away from where all your stuff is.
Yeah, for sure.
And also, like you said before, don't take a newer car reliable, more modern, as a given. Too,
don't take it less seriously because the car is more modern.
Right.
I'm in my weird 70s mindset where everything on the Z could break at any time, even though until recent years it has been very reliable because it is simple.
Yeah.
But I reached the end of the platform's capabilities and I'm starting to push past them and things are breaking. And then I get in my dad's Mustang and I'm like, oh, this thing's dead simple. What could happen? But the same things can happen. It's just, the only difference is my approach to it. But on the plus side, I did get to see Sammy. He showed up at the track, which was nice because I wasn't on the track in the afternoon. So we got to hang out. Dad got to hang out with us too. Sammy brought me my new Laserdisc player, which is super cool.
Is it working? Have you?
I haven't plugged it in
yet.
yet. I'm going to do it this weekend.
I'm terrified that it is not working, and that was the biggest.
I'm going to hold you fully responsible for its condition. Sammy picked up a Laserdisc player for me in Toronto because for some reason no one sells them in Montreal. It's not available at all.
For some reason,
3 seasons
weird.
ago.
What's that, Brad? For some reason.
For some weird reason, it's hard to get a Laserdisc player in 2026. Wow.
Sammy uses his time tunnel. It's a lot easier.
But you also picked up that CRT TV, didn't you?
Yeah, but not at Most Sport. I've had the CRT for like a month and a half.
That's right. You picked it up with a cross truck.
I picked it up with a cross truck. It weighed 168 pounds.
Yeah, and then you moved it with the tractor.
Moved it with the tractor.
the picture of it on the back of the tractor, I could tell. I could feel your happiness through the computer screen.
I did it by myself, which was crazy. Like I didn't think I could. I thought I would need my wife to help me, but like somehow I was able to do it. And if you're listening and you want to see pictures that Brad's referring to, go to benjaminhunting.com. There's 2 blogs. I just put up a blog post about using the CRT yesterday, but there's a link there where you can find, if you just click the keyword CRT or Laserdisc, it'll bring you to the post that Brad's talking about with like, I have like a 3-cylinder diesel tractor and it was the only way I could move this 170 pound TV from the Crosstrek to my garage. And then we brought it into the house. We used 2 dollies. And then I had to lift it from the dolly to the table stand that it's going to be on. And my wife was helping me, and she's a very small person. And there was a moment where my grip was weakening, and I realized that if I let the TV go, she would die. She would be crushed by this TV, no. And there was nothing that could be done. And it was like it was another one of those preparation moments, I guess.
I have
survived.
Yeah, no, and I mean, that's the important thing.
Exactly, that's what we're focusing on.
I have this, I think it's a 36-inch CRT from back when I was a teenager, and it's sitting in my office, the closet in the room that I use for my office, and it's moved with us ever since I've known Nicole, and she absolutely hates this thing, my wife. Yeah. And because I've told Ben about this before. It is extremely heavy, and it has no grip. Like there's nothing about the outside of it that's designed for people to pick it up.
It's like a super slick plastic surface.
Right.
Like,
and then the bottom is like this like sawtooth edges. Like, so it's like just hateful. But I keep telling her like someday I'm going to set up this TV on a stand with an original Nintendo and play like Duck Hunt and stuff like that. And that's the only way you can do it because the Zapper technology only works with the CRT. And I mean, there are like
perfectly reasonable thought process. And I have my SNES connected to mine. So I'm Super Scope 6. I'm like right there with you.
Yeah, man. And I mean, I just can't see myself getting rid of it, but I absolutely hate the thought of ever having to move it again, even to set it up. So we'll have to see what happens.
Deal. You get me, you get my CRT, man.
She didn't know that. She didn't know she was buying into the Brad CRT package.
My in-laws have one of these massive Sony like TVs that are attached to, like, they seem to come with a stand and like speakers, and it's not going anywhere.
Those are rare.
It's all the way in Europe right now, and it's not going anywhere. It is the coolest thing, but also the most annoying thing. It was like the last CRT ever made. My wife talks about it all the time. She's like, when the day you splurge on something is the day that entire technology will go like obsolete. That was her father's experience, and he's never ever done that again. Like, forget it.
You know what's crazy is, so I've gotten involved in these CRT Facebook groups just to to get like information.
Tracks.
I need just to like get information about like, because there's a tuning menu on these, so you can set them up like colors and stuff. And I just wanted to know what commands were. But there's people who are very, very, very into this hobby, right? And they will go into the TVs and they'll make like physical changes to the circuit boards to fix a problem. Like if, let's say it's bending the image at the top, or like the color's a bit faded here. But the crazy thing about these CRTs, especially the big ones, like the one Brad has, mine's a 32 inch. And I think the 36 is way over 200 pounds. They're huge, right? They have enormous capacitors in them that will kill you. And they'll kill you.
I would never open up one of those TVs ever.
They will kill you years after they've been plugged in. Like they maintain that charge almost indefinitely. And people don't realize that. And there's all these people like, oh yeah, make sure you use a grounded screwdriver and a grounding strap. And like, I'm thinking about your in-laws, Sammy, in Europe, where it's a 220 volt electrical system already. It just seems so insane, like that someone would risk that, you know? Like, I guess the alternative is you have to take it to a repair shop, which means lifting it, which is impossible.
No, we're not doing that. Never again.
You're going to have to take a wall down, I think, to get out of my house.
I truly believe so. There's one more thing I really wanted to have a discussion on this week's episode. And it's specifically about one of the vehicles we discussed last week. It is the Dodge Charger, just either the EV or the gas model.
Six-pack or Daytona. Totally not confusing that those refer to different drivetrains.
You know, the other day I was driving home and I saw like an older generation Dodge, the previous generation Dodge Charger with a Daytona sticker on it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, they made like a Daytona package, like appearance package or something. So they just decided to take that nameplate and affix it to an entirely different experience in terms of powertrain and like lifestyle. It's crazy.
I like how you attach lifestyle to that. Do you?
But no, like when you get into, I don't know. Yeah.
Are there multiple Dodge lifestyles? Brad would know the answer to that.
I mean, I will certainly say that the person who is buying a Daytona EV is a different person than who is buying a Hellcat powered Charger Daytona from LX Car.
So a bit of background.
That is a different person.
A bit of background. Brad is a proud LX platform owner for a very long time. Hellcat and pre-Hellcat.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
And I've had 3 of them in total, and I still have 2 of them.
And yeah, one of them is a very cool wagon.
Yeah, I feel like that's the one I will never get rid of, the Magnum SRT8.
It is the CRT of your life, your
Well, it belongs to Nicole, so in a way it's Nicole's CRT.
Oh, yeah, there you go. But it's sick. I mean, the Magnum is awesome.
Yeah, no, and I mean, and to be clear, in the past, she has been like, maybe we should sell this thing, and I'm like, we're never selling this thing.
Yeah,
I will. I mean, I truly mean this. I would sell the Hellcat before I would sell the Magnum.
I feel that way about my Cadillac. It's the last one I would sell. I completely identify with that feeling.
It's just the Challenger will never be as cool as a Magnum SRT8. Like it's such a weird car, and it's just like such a distinctive look. And I mean, there is a ton of stuff about it where you're like, God, I wish this had a better gearbox. I wish this had adaptive suspension, that kind of stuff. But at the same time, you look at it and you're like, this is so rad. And like the only thing cooler than this would be just a faster wagon. You know?
Right.
Yeah, and if you get like an E63, then you're just like everyone else who has an E63. You know, like
it's
so much more common.
And they're so expensive that it's just like, okay, if I'm going to buy something that's that fast, I'm going to buy a sports car. I'm not going to buy a wagon.
Yeah. You're not going to trade your Czinger for like 24 E63s, right? Like
exactly. And I mean, when they do get cheap enough, you're just like, okay, the reason it's so cheap is because the maintenance is insane. So you're never going to drive it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But yeah, we thought, you know, the whole impression of this new modern Dodge, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I think they would describe it as a muscle car. I think we needed to go to someone who has had so much experience with Dodge and the previous Charger Challenger vehicles. And that's you, Brad, man. You got all the info on these cars. What is going on with this new model? There's something not connecting here, right?
Well, one thing I would say about the 6-pack, you know, to what you were just talking about with, you know, trying to categorize it, is that when I drove the 6-pack, I mean, I don't know, this might have changed since then, but I kind of doubt it. But I looked at the Monroney and I was like, that's weird. It doesn't have the same adaptive suspension that the Daytona has. And it's also weird that it doesn't have the summer tires that the Daytona EV had. It was on all seasons, and it was on a static, damper, suspension setup. So I went on the configurator, and I found out, at least at that point, about a year ago, that you couldn't even option those things on this car, even though it's the same car. Like those things are not, powertrain dependent. Like So, but I don't know. Maybe they wanted to create this art.
We couldn't put nice tires because it's not an EV. Oops!
I think that they just wanted to create this artificial, sort of separation and performance level between the two cars. Because if you put summer tires and better suspension on the 6-pack, with it being 1,000 pounds lighter, that you're suddenly starting to bump up against what the EV can do. But because it was configured that way. This review that I wrote for Motor Trend was kind of like the main, sort of topic of it was, this isn't a muscle car. It's a personal luxury car.
Yeah.
If you look at, what those were back in the late 70s, the configuration of this car is basically identical to what that is. It's huge.
That's the same conclusion we had last week. It's it's a complete disconnect between what Dodge is telling us it is and what everything about our senses is telling us it is.
Right. And there are so many things that are inherent to what defines a muscle car, in my opinion, that this car does not have. Basically the only thing it has that makes it a muscle car to me is it being a front engine coupe. You have, to me, a muscle car is rear wheel drive, V8 front engined, and preferably has a manual transmission. And none of those things are what this is,
Yeah.
And
I'll make an exception for the Grand National.
A lot of people do. I personally wouldn't do that, but I can understand that where it was in the mid 80s, that just didn't fit into any other category.
How do you feel about the Turbo Trans Am that came just after it?
Was it V8?
No, there was a one model year where they took the Trans Am and the Buick motor.
Oh, huh. I didn't even know about that car.
It's pretty rare.
I would just call it a sports car, honestly, and that's probably what I would call the Grand National.
Okay. I'm also looking at the build sheet now, Brad, and you still can't order summer tires.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
The optional tire package for the car is all season.
Yeah, when you go out to drive it hard, it's terrible. It's got tons of body roll, it's got tons of squat, tons of dive, and there's no grip. And the car still weighs 4,900 pounds, and it wants to understeer because it's all-wheel drive. So it's just everything that made the last generation Challenger and Charger fun have been kind of removed from this car. It's a great cruiser, and I'm sure that lots of people, I'm not super crazy about the exterior design, but a lot of people are, and that's perfectly valid. And so you get this sort of stylish, big coupe with a lot of curb appeal, and that is what a personal luxury car was always supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what this car is. And
Dodge does not have a customer for that.
That's not their person.
I don't know if that customer exists. That person is going to buy an SUV just because it's more useful,
or they're going to buy an 8 Series,
right? Yeah, and price wise, you're right up there with it.
That's crazy. That's not.
And when you look at it in profile, it is so clearly a 4-door car.
Yeah, totally.
That has 2 doors.
100%. There's so many compromises about the way this thing was designed that clearly hurt it's the overall package, and are focused on just cost cutting at any measure. When you look at a Challenger and a Magnum or a Charger from the LX cars, the Challenger has a shortened wheelbase, and the dimensions are slightly different. It actually gets its own designation as an LC platform car as opposed to an LX, and that gives the car the right proportions and also makes it a little bit better dynamically. They didn't do that with this car. The wheelbase and the roof skin for the 2-door and the 4-door Charger are identical. So essentially, you just have a long 4-door sedan, or you essentially have a 4-door sedan with 2 long doors instead.
Yeah,
and the proportions, in my opinion, are just inherently messed up because of that. The car will never look right, especially in profile, because of that.
Seeing it with the door open and seeing how far ahead their seats are, it's odd. It is just an odd experience.
Yeah, and the other thing that just trips me out about it, there's a lot of cool, second gen Charger cues in it, which is great. I'm stoked to see them finally realizing that. But what's weird is that if you look at a 68 or 69 or 70 Charger, and you look at it in profile, you'll see that the front fenders are slightly lower than the rear fenders, where they sort of arch up.
Yeah, it's almost like a Coke bottle.
Right. And the thing about the new one is that it's the opposite. the front fender is actually slightly higher than the rear one. So it makes this thing have this like sort of truck-like stance that just doesn't work right. And just like, you see where they were going with it, but the execution is not there.
It's interesting that you bring up a truck-like stance, because I feel like SUV proportions are filtering into areas where they don't belong. And this is a really good example of that, because in addition to what you're talking about, if you stand in front of the car, it looks so tall and so bulky. And the idea of a bulky sports car, I mean, sports cars have been hulking up for the last decade. And even cars that are ostensibly very svelte, like say an F-Type, the Jaguar F-Type is a good example. That is a chunky car from certain angles. The front end is very flat, but the design is specifically there to draw your eye away from that. Like it's to make it look like it's not chunky. Nowadays, design is there to put this in your face and be like, here's a big bad coupe that looks just like the big SUV that you didn't buy for some reason. It's weird. And I saw it most recently. They just put out photos of the new Hyundai Elantra. And it looks like it's got box flares now. And it's like a CHR or something. It's just weird.
Okay, I love that new concept or whatever that production is. Yeah, I think it looks pretty cool. I
agree with it. It looks so like bulky and like it's a compact car. I can't believe it looks like that.
That's
I am just stoked to see Hyundai Group being like adventurous with their exterior design.
Oh, they definitely are. They definitely are not afraid to try things that no one else would try.
They are the weirdest design team out there. Yeah. I think that's the best part about them.
I think that it gives them a very distinct identity, both within Genesis, within Kia, and within Hyundai. And the ones that work really well are really impressive because they don't look like anything else. Like they didn't just crib somebody else's good design and like try to make it their own. It's just like, whoa, an Ioniq 5 looks slightly like a Lancia Delta, but 90% of it is just Hyundai doing something really like bold. You know?
For sure. I feel the same way. I really wish more car companies would take that initiative. I feel like BMW is closest to doing that, where like every few years they're like, okay, we're going to do something totally off the wall, and maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. Like the new class that they've got now on the 3 and the X5 that just came out with the X headlights and stuff. That's weird, but they're going for it.
I'm glad to see them trying stuff, but I think that anybody of a certain age, you always go back to the E39 and the E46 and you're like, why can't they make cars that look this good?
A classically designed, looking car for sure.
Right. And like, there's nothing wild or like outlandish about those two cars, in terms of like their styling features. They're just like so perfectly executed in what they are without any kind of like gimmicks or weird sort of, flourishes that are supposed to make them distinctive. They're just like this sort of, generic perception of what a coupe should look like, then refined to like this, like honed to this like diamond, point.
To like a classic proportion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, in that period, BMW was also doing crazy stuff, but it was limited to certain models, like the Z3. That's a weird looking car for the time. The 8 Series was a weird looking car. They didn't really let it leak out to the bread and butter cars they were putting out. Those were it's like there was a firewall in terms of like, we have to keep these looking classic. Mm-hmm. We have to keep these looking not conservative, but like a car that has a much broader appeal. Even the X5 from that period is like a really unique and interesting design compared to other SUVs. Now it's kind of pulped up.
Yeah.
But, I saw a guy with a really nice 4.8 IS on the road the other day. You never see them, and it was super clean. Like someone clearly loved this vehicle. That's a real labor of passion to keep a 30-year-old BMW X5 on the road and looking that good. I don't know. Maybe it was an estate sale purchase. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And the other thing is just, to your point, it feels like a lot of manufacturers are so concerned about having this like continuity in design language between all of the cars and SUVs and whatever else they sell, that you kind of get less adventurous because of that. And that's kind of what I really commend about Hyundai, is that like, it doesn't feel like they're like, okay, if the Santa Fe looks like this, then the Elantra has to look like this, that kind of thing.
Yep. And the EVs don't even look the same. They didn't
Right.
say all our electric cars have to look like they're electric. They're like, one of them's going to look like a Porsche and a Saab had a baby, and the other one's going to look like an 8-bit Nintendo cartridge. And you're like, okay.
I think the other thing that I really like about that car that they just announced, that was the new Elantra, right?
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yes.
There are elements of the N74 vision concept in that.
Yeah,
that's true.
Like
That's a good
anything that
point.
gets me slightly closer to that is what I wish Dodge had done when they did this new, Charger and and the coupe version of that also. It had kind of gone in this sort of retro version that was more focused on what if the Challenger had survived to the 80s, or what if the Charger had continued into the 80s as a full-size car.
Instead, we got the Hornet.
Right. I mean,
No.
and you got that Challenger that was Mitsubishi based.
Oh yeah. That the Sapporo.
Man, if they had just supported that car a little bit more, they could have had like a legitimate Fox body, rival, and like put a V8 in it. That could have been a rad car, but that just, it wasn't in the cards for Dodge back then.
No, that's a good point. And like Mitsubishi was just happy to make money licensing their 4-cylinder balancer,
right?
Harmonic balancer to everybody. Yeah.
And Dodge was just happy to not spend any money except on like badging.
Yeah.
Well, Sammy, I think that
Yes,
brings
sir.
us. I think that brings us to the end of the natural endpoint. Dodge not spending any money, which is a frequent theme that we come across on this podcast. If people want to hear other episodes where we talk about Dodge and what they may or may not do with their savings account, how would people do that?
They should head on over to our website, unnamedautomotivepodcast.com. While you're there, you'll see all of our previous episodes. But more important than that, you can subscribe to our podcast, or you can send us a message. We love hearing from our listeners. We have a contact form. You fill that out. It lands in our inbox. We talk about it almost the next episode, whenever possible. If you don't want to do that, if you want to send us an email, that's no problem. We will accept your feedback. It's benjamin@benjaminhunting.com. That's the email address to use. Or you can reach out to us on social media. I'm mostly found on Instagram. That's probably the easiest way you can get in touch with me. I'm at Sammy_ha, like you're laughing. I'm trying to get back into social media on Blue Sky. You can find me Sammy-ha, and Ben is at Hunting Benjamin there.
And Brad, where can people find your work or get in touch with you, or do you not want people to get in touch with you? Because that's also a valid choice.
I mean, I have an Instagram account that I'm pretty easy to find. The Czinger story was done for Hemmings. That's hemmings.com. In general, I'm just, I'm writing for so many different people that I haven't really aggregated into one, website or anything like that. So I would just Google my name, I guess.
All right. Sounds good.
Brad Iger,
Sounds
love
good.
it.
And just as always, I just want to put it out there, Carlos Ghosn, if you're listening, we are open to hearing your ideas about how to save Nissan. So reach out to us any of the ways we've just mentioned. Reach out to Brad too. He's open for that.
Sure.
We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you.
Sammy, what are we talking about next week?
I've got this Subaru Trail Seeker that you heard a little bit about my sweltering heat experience in.
Okay.
I'm really eager to talk to you about this because I have so many ideas about what this car should be and is, and I couldn't wait to drive it, and now I get to share it with you.
I've got a mystery car that we may or may not talk about.
Ooh, I love mystery cars.
All right. Thank you for listening, everybody.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.